you joining us. Darrian and I have been running this nonprofit called Second Line Arts Collective now for some time, and so we had this summer camp the last a couple of weeks ago where we were interviewing guest artists. And another facet of what we were doing under the nonprofit, Darrian was hosting a podcast called the Working Artist Project. So we've kind of decided, since we have this time at home, we would try and create these opportunities to talk to artists here in New Orleans and artists in New York and all over the world, people who are great examples of masterful artists and also navigating the music business and making a living and doing great things. So tonight, our first guest, we have Mr. Amari Ansari in the house. Great saxophone
Amari
player.
Ansari.
Yeah, it's phonetic. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, bro.
Thank y'all for having me, for sure. I've definitely been watching what y'all have been doing with Second Line from the beginning. I remember when you all were talking about it, just so it's nice to see not only are you bringing artists to the table to talk about their experience, but also with the summer camp, y'all are like grouping musicians, young musicians, training minds in order to like teach what you've learned from the masters themselves. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you, bro.
Totally.
Yeah.
Man, so we can just get right into it. I'm gonna, I guess the idea that I kind of had moving forward is we wanted to talk to you tonight about how you got to this point in your life. I believe you're 27, 28?
28. Just made 28 in March.
Just made 28. So Amari is 28, and has gone through the entire the progression of being a student in school to studying at a university level at the University of New Orleans, and spending the last couple of years on the road with several different bands. But we'll get into that for a second. But Amari, man, so you grew up in a musical family, and I was wondering if you would be able to talk about some of like your earliest memories of music and what members of your family played and how that influenced you to become a musician. I'm not closing.
Yeah, man, I definitely come from a musical family. My mom grew up in the church playing organ and piano. So, and also she played flute. By the time I was around, she had already been playing flute for decades. But her influence of gospel music, like she used to play gospel music all around the house, 24/7. And also just her love for music itself. She didn't go into the music field as far as her career profession. She deals with healthcare, but man, her influence is super big. She plays flute, and piano, organ. Matter of fact, the first instrument I tried to play was flute. Beyond that, my grandmother sung in a local big band, the Birmingham Heritage Band. My grandma, from a young age, she would play like all kinds of like really, really old traditional jazz. When I say traditional jazz, I speak in the broader sense of like American jazz, like Black American music. A lot of vocals, a lot of big band stuff. So I remember going and listening to her big band, her sing with the big band in Birmingham on 4th Avenue across from the Jazz Hall of Fame. I mean, I might have been like 6 or 7, something like that. I mean, I started playing music, saxophone at 8. So even as a baby, I was around that kind of stuff. Also, I guess at 8, I also met what I would consider my mentor, somebody who taught me everything about music, but also more so about myself. His name is Dr. Frank Adams Sr. He's an educator, jazz musician. He actually sat in, played in Duke Ellington's big band. He would tell me stories about meeting Charlie Parker. He was at school at Howard with Benny Golson. So he knows, like he was around, but he passed away in 2014. It's from where I can remember, music has always been around. And I can even tell you my first musical experience where I felt like I had been transported to a different place, or I was using music to kind of channel something that was beyond me. My mentor, every Saturday, my mom used to wake me up early and take me to these lessons at the Jazz Hall of Fame. And there'd be a lot of kids around. And Doc, he would give everybody homework to do. Like, go learn Mary Had a Little Lamb in 4 different keys. And if you come back next week, you play it in 4 keys, I'll give you $1. So for me, I'm like, oh, that's easy money. I'll go learn all 12. Like I'm serious. I would learn 12. I would learn them in major keys, minor keys. I would do everything just to rack up as much money as I could. Long story short, we were planning to perform, end of the season performance. It was like, oh, we need to kill some time. Did anybody do last week's homework, which was learn Amazing Grace in 2 or 3 keys? I was like, man, I definitely did that. So I raised my hand, and he was like, all right, let me hear what you got, in front of, not a large group of people, maybe like 20, 30 people, but enough for me as a young child at 9 to be like, wow, I'm kind of nervous. I don't know if I could do this. That being said, what I remember, I closed my eyes and I just did what did what felt natural. And by the time I opened my eyes, like 2 or 3 minutes had passed, and everybody, I had a standing ovation. And I was like, man, that's crazy. Like, what? I don't remember what happened, but I know it felt good, and these people felt uplifted by it. So it definitely made me see that there were some things immediately available to me that could affect people on a deeper level than I realized.
Now you mentioned that you went to church, and your mom, your grandmother, and everybody was in church playing music. Mm-hmm. Do you think that connection, that spiritual connection that you gained from church, helped you translate into, the other Black American music that you were dealing with, even then and now?
Man, it's interesting because I actually grew up in a Muslim family. So I would go to mosque on Fridays, and then I would go, with my grandma, her church kid, on Sunday. So having both of those expressions of what it is to be like Black American, from a physical sense, a theology sense, as far as religion goes, and even musically. Because at the mosque, people were still bumping
right.
like James Brown. It definitely had a huge influence.
Yeah.
Just like my understanding of music is like blues, number one. I'm not talking about blues scale. I'm talking about just straight up blues, like the music as it is, the oratory of the music as it is. Huge influence. Everything is a blues. I don't care what you say. Giant Steps is a blues. Like everything is a blues.
Oh, now I'm understanding why you in Delphio's band. Okay.
Yeah. You get it.
I get it now.
He is funny because the older I get, the more I'm like, all right, I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from. I might not always agree. Obviously, everybody has different philosophies on music, but I see where you're coming from. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you so you were mentioning that you met Dr. Adams. You called him just Doc, right?
I call him Doc. Yeah. He has a book too, man. Y'all can go read. Matthew Bergens wrote a book about him. You could go read the book. I'm serious. It's a great book. Clarinet player. Fess Watley was his mentor. It's like deep, rich history. That's one reason when I came to New Orleans, I was like, I want to hang out with the masters, because that's what I was used to.
Well, what's the name of the book?
It's called Doc.
It's called Doc.
Called Doc.
Yeah. Here, actually, hold up.
Please hold. He's going to get the book. He's going to show it to us. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's cute.
Wait. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Jazz Man.
The story of a Birmingham jazz man, for sure.
Oh, that is cute. And it's funny, I remember you playing me videos of him on several different occasions after gigs with Doug, and you always talking about him. And I think what's really awesome is, like, between the three of us, we all have these basically like the same relationship with a mentor. 3 totally separate places in the world. And I studied with Alvin Baptiste, and Darrian studied with Alvin Fielder. And I know that was like the initial connection that I had with Darrian too. But like, can you talk about like how important that relationship with Doc was in your early life, and how that informed your idea of the alto saxophone too? Because I remember the one video you showed me, I was like, damn, like y'all sound the same in like the best way possible. Where I was like, man, that totally sounds like where you're coming from,
Yeah.
Maybe if you have a special story about him that you really enjoy.
Yeah, man. I cannot express enough, y'all, how much I miss that man. because he taught me so much about music, but also just so much about life, about how to just treat people, how to treat someone that would not socially be accepted at your level of status. That being said, he was always a giver, specifically music speaking. Man, he came, before I even picked up a saxophone, he came to my elementary school when I was like in second grade and played clarinet, and he played When the Saints Go Marching in the gym. I don't remember anything else about that school, but I remember being in that gym. And they had brown trimming and there's like yellow paint on the wall and a basketball goal. I looked to my right, and it's this old man in like a suit, a bolo tie, like playing clarinet. Like not just like he ain't just playing, but he's like my soul is here. Like you were witnessing my claim to life. I was like, man, this whatever I was doing, I was like, man, it doesn't matter because this man right here is like really dealing with it. Whatever it is, I can hear it. I'm not talking to you. I don't know who you are, but I respect you. And then lo and behold, he was the lead alto player in the big band that my grandma would sing in. So when I decided to like really play the saxophone, like after like a couple months or a year, she's like, I'll introduce you to him. And when I met him, I was like, oh, I recognize you. You know, you came to my elementary school. He said, oh, okay, I remember that. And the funny thing he used to do is every time he would meet somebody new, because he used to give tours too of the Jazz Hall of Fame. Every time he would meet somebody new, he would improvise them a song, and he would make it a point to say, this song is your song. Nobody else will have this song. It is yours right now, so remember it, how I play it. And when he played it, obviously, he's improvised. And so, of course, he'll make a melody, he'll do this and that. He might not even remember what it is, but it's your song. It's yours and nobody else. And to me, his thought process, his philosophy of like really trying to live in the present, to live in the moment as a musician, but also as a meditator, as a philosophical thinker, like really trying to focus, hone in on the moment of what you're trying to do. I mean, there's a list of things you have to do to really get that to effect. I mean, you have to know what you want. You have to set goals. You have to be able to define measurable goals to the things you want. But for him specifically, I mean, again, there's so many stories. I could talk about him for hours. But one thing that he instilled in me is you have to do you, as he always said. Like, do you. Something that Warm Daddy, Wessell Anderson, amazing saxophone player here in New Orleans, used to tell me, he's like, something that you have to embrace is that your sound is your sound. Whether that's tonal, physically, harmony, melody, all that, touch, rhythm, like what you sound like is you. And once you accept that and start to embrace what you have and polish that, then you'll be light years ahead of anybody else, because now you're measuring your abilities of your own. You know, it's this individualism is amazing. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, man, I think Greg and I understand that 100% because all three of us have this thing with these mentors who taught us to be good human beings first. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's some stuff you can't get nowhere else. You sitting in their house, in their living room, listening to music, talking about all kinds of stuff. You know, like me and Al used to just, you know. So I know that level of love and trust that you can have with somebody. Yeah, bro. That's killing, man.
I think it's kind of cool too that from three lead alto players, you know, it's funny because like the sound of the alto is like not only your sound as an individual player, but it's also the sound of the band in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's interesting just to hear that from Wes and also from Doug. And also, you know, having played with you as the lead at the section many times. And
man, that's a vibe. That's a lot of responsibility. I've been. Oh man, yeah. So many. That's a lot.
Man, since we're talking about mentorship, I think that there's something lost because I don't know if kids seek out this generation. They seek out mentors, kind of like, you know, we did. You're a bit younger than me. But I don't know if the young kids are doing it now. They all rely on like, programs like ours or schools and stuff to get all the information. Do you think that that's a good idea, or do you think these kids should be seeking out somebody who's done it so they can get under their wing,
I think that the idea that, well, I'm sorry, I think the accessibility of it is a beautiful thing. To have the resources here as available is great, because our ancestors didn't have that. They didn't use that. They didn't even have that option. But I also think that it can, to a degree, be somewhat of a crutch. Because, my dad, he used to be like, I used to walk up to him and like, hey, what does this mean? He'd be like, go get the dictionary. He would go and maybe get the dictionary and read out loud what this word meant. And I tell you, I'll never forget. I know what it is. So if there's information there, you might have the information, but that doesn't mean you understand it. You need somebody there with the knowledge to be able to show you how, through experience, it can be applied. So I'm always asking, you always need mentors, because information itself, again, won't make good people.
Right.
Mentors, like experiences, can make better, more informed people.
Right. Absolutely.
So man, I appreciate you sharing those experiences about Doc, man. It's like, it's so beautiful that, again, it's I think one of the things that I really enjoy about having these conversations with people is like seeing that there's so many similarities between, at least, people that I admire and look up to, and we all kind of have, there's so many things that bring us together in terms of how we got to this place. So in 2009, you came out you made the voyage down to New Orleans, right? To attend university over at UNO, University of New Orleans. And I was wondering if you could kind of speak on, I know you were awarded the Ellis Marcellus Scholarship, and talk about maybe how, if you were looking into other colleges, if you were thinking about going to a music conservatory, and ultimately why you decided to come to New Orleans as opposed to going somewhere else.
Yeah, I had a couple options. I'm sure y'all are familiar. Florida State University has a really good program. Mm-hmm. And I went and I met a lot of teachers, and I really, really enjoyed the teachers there. I applied for Berkeley. I got like a small scholarship, even New School. I didn't really think I would want to go to New York immediately. I guess my ambitions weren't that high enough at the moment. And I remember I came down to New Orleans, and I went through the process of orientation, school, and then finally I got accepted, and then I got the Ellis Marcellus Jazz Scholarship, which, by the way, was a full ride. So for me, I was like, man, that's a big deal. I had family from Louisiana. Like, my family's from Alabama and Louisiana. Like, everybody on my dad's side went to Southern. I had family in Baton Rouge, a couple family members here in New Orleans. So I'd even been to Mardi Gras once or twice before actually moving down. So I was like, man, this feels a little bit more like home. It's a little bit closer to home. And also really enjoyed just the music scene. From what I've seen from the music scene coming visiting in high school, obviously it's not as big of an industry as New York or LA, but if you want to learn the music, you can like find these people. Like you can easily find these people, go to their gigs, and like learn directly from like true masters. And that's what I wanted. That's exactly what I wanted. So when I came down, I remember that first week, like every day I would like catch the bus, or like I had like an older friend, like also from Birmingham that was at UNO. So I'd be like, hey man, if you go into a gig, let me just hop in the car with you. I just want to see what's going on. I need to know. I need to be around people that are doing what I want to do. And then lo and behold, some of the first people I saw, I remember Darrian. I went the first Ellis gig I went to, Darrian was playing. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, man, okay. And I remember it's funny how things work out, but I came to New Orleans specifically because I knew I could find like Warren Beatty. I came because I knew Delphia was kind of here, and I knew the Marcellus dynasty was here. I knew Branford was here. There's a lot to learn. So I was more than appreciative that I also got a full ride. So.
Yeah, man. You're absolutely right about New Orleans. It's funny because we all moved to New Orleans at different periods in our life, but even for me, like I'm sure like Hurl and Shannon and Jason got tired of seeing me because I would show up to all of their gigs and sit right in the front.
Right in the front.
Yeah, like with a notepad, like, oh, okay. Or I'd be recording it on my phone, or if I had a little recorder, I just record it.
Yeah.
You know, don't tell them that, but then I go home and try to work it out, you know. But it's a great city to learn. Great city to live, too. I see you ain't left yet. So
Nah, this is home, bro. This is home. I like just, you know, normally, honestly, yeah, speaking of, normally I would be on tour. Like, I'm supposed to be on tour right now. With Tedeschi Trucks, you know, a joint tour, almost like 2 month long tour, you know, to the end of August, all of July to the end of August. But I've been home now for probably about 6 months. It's the longest I've been home in like 3 or 4 years.
Man, look, I had some questions about that because we're all home. We're all supposed to be. I'm supposed to be in Sicily. I'm sure Greg is supposed to be in Australia or some shit like that.
Yeah.
No, especially in the UK.
In the UK, see? And I'm wondering, like, what kind of opportunities has this new market afforded you?
Man, so it's interesting because I'd already kind of stepped in trying to be more of a producer, for like trying to get into like some recording and stuff, even trying to put out like my own music here and there of my own production style, just to see, like, test the waters, you know, just to learn. As far as opportunities, man, it seems like everybody wants me to record something from home now. So you got to have like a home studio set up, like a mic, interface, like everything, a home studio recording. And like, man, a ton of people have been hitting me up about lessons. Online lessons, and it's funny because it's a weird transition for me. Trying to teach an instrument, you know, there's kind of a delay or even real time issue with trying to, you know, get there. Just the VR doesn't normally work, in my opinion. Sometimes when you're trying to teach like a saxophone, so trying to tailor my lessons, you know, to material, pre-prepared material to help folks out. I mean, that's a big market. And also live streams. Everybody and their mama now got a live stream. They want folks to do, but they want live stream. Man, somebody hit me up the other day. It was like, hey, I got this live stream I'm doing with my cousin, and we want some saxophone on it. And I was like,
okay.
I was like, okay. Like, give me more details. He was like, oh, that's it. We don't really have no song, but I figured we could just come jam. I was like, bro, come on, man. Like, no. You know.
That sounds like some New Orleans stuff too.
Yeah.
But next, so you kind of mentioned that you know, you've done so many things, like, and so the three of us, were we all in Delphio's band at the same time?
Yeah.
We were?
There was definitely overlap, yeah.
There was overlap, yeah. I mean, like, I think I was like 23 or 24. Jerron, you must start, excuse me.
I must have been like 17, 18, because I joined the band and it was December of 2010 because Alan Dejan was like, hey, bro, I need you to make this gig.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. I'll come in, you know, do this and the other. And I hate to use this word, but just my dumb ass literally came to the gig like in shorts or something. And I sat in the front row. I sat in the front row for the whole first set. And then during the second set, I went upstairs like, hey, my name is so and so. Dejan told me to come and play. And Delpha Tap was like, well, bro, why were you sitting in the crowd the whole first set if you're supposed to be on the gig? And I was like, I didn't know it was like a gig. I was like, what's a gig? What's the difference between the gig and a gig? And I was like, man, I don't know. I was like, I really don't know. I couldn't even tell you. But you live and you learn. So.
Yeah, right.
But like, what are some things, like, you know, besides like what are some things that you've learned in that band? 'Cause I mean, we've been in the band for 10 years now, and Darrian was in the band for a good 2 years before he moved up to New York. But like, what?
10 years, wow.
I mean, I know there's so many things you've learned, but like, what are some things like specifically you've learned from Delphio, some experiences, and how that informs the things that you do outside of the band?
I remember specifically at one point realizing that I had no knowledge of big band saxophone, period. When I say big band or large group, I mean specifically that era. And I even, to be even more specific, like my mentor, he really liked Benny Carter and Johnny Hodges. He would play a lot of Johnny Hodges, a lot of Benny Carter, and that's kind of what I would somewhat check out. But I was like, man, I want to play like these modern cats. I want to play like Miguel Zanon. I want to play like Kenny Garrett. I want to like play fast and play super high and like, get in there. And it was really funny because he pulled me upstairs and was like, what transcriptions do you know? Do you know any transcriptions? Like, he was like, you're not playing any kind of language. Like, you're not dealing with the music at all. You're not playing any blues. And I was like, I know the blues scale. What are you talking about? And it was funny because he was like, man, just give me one transcription, one blues transcription that you know. And I was like, I don't know any. And he was like, step one, go home and learn 2 courses off of this burnt CD, this burnt Johnny Hodges small group CD. The name of the song is called Nightlife. He's like, go learn these 2 courses of Nightlife and come back next week and play it. And he made me play those 2 courses. Like, it's the only solo I took. He made me play those 2 courses for like 3 months, every night, every Wednesday for like 3 months. And I was like, man, I'm done. Like, this is stupid. Like, why am I doing this? I tell you though, by the end of that 3rd month, it was funny because I realized that, one, that was the first transcription I'd ever done, one that I'd actually committed to memory, and then 2, the only one that I had started to really seep into my playing. So I sounded better. I started to, kind of deal with the harmony a little bit better. Johnny Hodges is a very lyrical musician too, so I started to play with more lyricism, just a little bit, just enough for me to be like, wow, I need to check out more music. He taught me how to like really sit down, transcribe, do my research, and to really study the blues.
Yeah. Like, Delph is a great band leader because he knows how to, he pulls like young cats in every section, and then he'll put an old cat in there with you just so it don't get too, and also it's funny how all of us have that kind of story where Delph was like, man, what XYZ, you need to listen to this and do that and this. And then you do it and you hate it. You hate it and you hate him. In the moment, you're like, man, I don't want to do that, man. I'm trying to do this. But then you do it, and all of a sudden you can play 10% better. You're like, oh shit, okay, I need to.
Well, you notice it. It's little, but you notice it. It's like, oh man, okay, maybe he was telling the truth.
Yeah, he's like a real old school band leader. Like 1930s. Like, it's really phenomenal to think about a few years after you've had the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's so cool that I'm forever grateful to Delphio for giving me the opportunity. I know we all share that same sentiment, but like, it's so cool to have the opportunity to learn as a young musician. Like, for you to be 18 on the gig, for me to be like 23, and to essentially not know what the hell is going on, to be sad as whatever, but then have the opportunity to work it out on the gig in a somewhat high pressure situation. Like, we're playing at Sun Harbor where the tickets are $35, $40 a night, and people are coming in for the sets and they're quiet and listening, and I really, I'm forever grateful for that opportunity to be part of a serious gig and a great listening environment too.
Absolutely.
Especially share that with you guys.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how people grow. 10 years is a long time. A couple years, but man, just to watch the band grow. And like you said, because I remember in the section, Roger Lewis, Dirty Desert Brass Band. When I'm on tour, I play Barry. That's like the main horn. So man, I actually bought my Barry from Roger. And
oh, wow.
I bought it. I was like, man, I need a Barry. He got like 20 Barrys. I went over there and played a couple. I was like, let me get this one. He hooked me up. I go over there often just to get a lesson, just to play with him, because Roger's a good example of a mentor. Somebody who's lived. I mean, he's been on the road. He told me, I think Roger's like 75. He said he'd been on the road since he was about 15, 16. It's like,
wow. Man,
I was like, man, it's crazy. 77, yeah. You say it's been 60 years or something like that. I was like, man. So trying to learn from people who are living it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Delph we had Fred Sanders on piano and it's like me and Jason Weaver. And bro. Yeah. Fred will be like, come to my house. We'd be so sad. We'd go to Fred's house and he'd be, it was really a great experience, man. It's really priceless. And it's something that you're not going to get that in nobody's school, even if you give them $100,000.
Nah, that's the human experience. You can't pay for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
No, go ahead, bro.
I was gonna ask, man. You keep talking about going on the road, so I just wanted to kind of like also. So I know you've done a lot of stuff with Delphio on the road with the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra, but you kind of have an amazing gig with St. Paul and the Broken Bones, and I wanted to know if you could tell us how you got that gig, and how maybe like something like Delphio's band or the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra prepares you for like. Not a top 40 type band, but I mean, like you guys are a band that y'all playing the Tonight Show and doing some really, really, really high profile gigs.
Yeah. I mean, we do a lot. I mean, last year, I got to meet the Rolling Stones. We opened up for them last year at Soldier Field Stadium. It was like 70,000 people. That's a lot of people. I never experienced something like that, at least being on the stage that big. And it's a beautiful experience. I've for all those people that have been touring before, you kind of know there are different levels of touring. Like sometimes you really have to, cut your teeth, for years in order to work towards a comfortable position in that realm or in that circuit. With this group, the bass player of this group, his name is Jesse Phillips. I've actually known Jesse since I was 9. Jesse's about 41 now, something like that. Sorry, Jesse, put your age out there. But Jesse used to work in the music shop that my mom would go into to buy like her music, like piano music book stuff. And eventually I bought my first professional saxophone from Jesse. That Selmer, I still play it. I played a live stream with Delph like a couple of days ago, and it's the same horn I bought from him. A couple years later, Jesse would go on to start a group with Paul Janeway, the vocalist. Duo kind of started with them doing some work. They had a band before, and eventually, they meet different people, grow into that, and it became what it is. 2 years, I guess the band is 7 years old. I've been playing with the band now since 2016, 17, so about 3 years almost, something like that. I joined the band straight up because Jesse had been asking me for years, if this is something I would keep thinking about doing. Well, he's like, hey, check out this music. Let me know what you think, this, that, and the other. If by some chance you're free, I see you're touring. He's also a big fan of New Orleans music because he went to Loyola. He lived in New Orleans for about 7 years himself. So he'd always been kind of close to the scene, and we kept in touch. It's funny. It really is like kind of who you know. And I remember Terrence Blanchard, he said, success is opportunity meets preparedness, or preparedness meets opportunity.
Yeah. Preparation plus opportunity.
Yeah, preparation plus opportunity. I was in the right place with the right amount of skills, and I knew the right kind of people, that. And even more importantly, I had done some touring with Delph and Nojo. So I've been familiar with the touring circuit, and I knew what it took in order to be a successful musician on tour, because I had, again, mentors like Jason Marshall, who was in the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra when I was around, and the very player then. Like Delphio, like Roger Lewis, Kyrie Allen Lee, like all these older cats, Roger Paulin that I would do touring with, they'd be like, hey man, did you eat breakfast today? Make sure you get enough sleep. Make sure you stay hydrated. If call time is 8 a.m., that means you need to be downstairs at like 7:50. Like, don't be the last one on the bus. Like all these kind of small things will kind of culminate into like kind of priming me for the position that I kind of am in now. So I've been on a lot of other touring situations where it was not easy, like not at all. Like bus breaking down on the side of the road. Like people crammed into like a sedan. with no air conditioner type stuff. So I'm more than fortunate for what I am now.
Well, yeah, it's I guess it's important for cats to know you don't start usually at the high profile gig, bro. You got to do some car gigs and sleep on the floor in some clubs with no blanket in the wintertime in Boston and get paid $25. This happened to me. And so you start at the bottom and you work your way up.
You work your way up.
Yeah. But I like this story because it's a story of relationships. And so it's important to always treat people, to always be nice. That's kind of my motto. Just be a nice person, especially in this industry, because you never know. Somebody's like, oh man, that dude's nice. And then 10 years later, they recommend you for the Beyonce hit. They're like, oh, Beyonce, really? I know the perfect guy. He's really nice. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. If you're going to be on the road, you're going to be touring, seeing people, like literally like living, specifically like on a bus, like a tour bus or like hotels, living with people for, days, weeks at a time. You want to like them. Right. Like you kind of need to like them. Because if you like really don't, it's going to be an issue. It's going to be a big issue.
No matter how good you can play.
No matter how good you can play. That almost makes it worse because that's a stamp. Like, I'm going to be around. Like, I'm good at what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
man. That's
even like, for Darrian and myself, like, I think we both got our, main gigs the same way you did. It's being at the right place at the right time with the right equipment and the right knowledge, but almost just as important as all that work was knowing the right person.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even the dynamic of Delphio's band, man, like there's plenty of qualified musicians in the sense that like they could play the parts and things like that, but a big part of that whole experience is to hang and fit in with 20 different personalities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm
So Jerron, man, what is so look, I know like, I mean, it's funny because in having these conversations, it's like I want to have these conversations of like, so how did you get your website together? What did you do? And like also like what advice do you have for young musicians? But I feel like in this time of like COVID and this pandemic thing, it's like, like it's almost, we're in this like weird situation where it's like, we can't really talk about how to get a gig because there are no gigs.
Man, it truly is unprecedented because it's like the first time where almost more so, like you're saying, Darrian, like just be nice. Like everybody's cashing in their favors right now. It's like everybody needs some help. So it's like, if people know, you're not the kind of person to like look after you or look after them when it hits the fan, you're not the kind of person they're gonna call right now when it's, when something pops up for the better. It's like, oh man. Yeah, it's funny because somebody hit me up a while ago about lessons again. And, I charge like not a whole bunch, but $50 an hour, which is like more than reasonable. That being said, he was like, man, I really want to take lessons with you, but I can't afford the lesson right now. And I was like, you know what? Because one, I would normally just be sitting at home anyway, doing nothing, practicing, working on something, trying to figure out what the next step is. I was like, for you, because I knew this person and also I know they would do the same if I was in that position. I was like, man, don't even worry about the money. How much rather you have this knowledge? Mm-hmm. That's a situation where down the road, that relationship will become even stronger because it's like, you might have something now that I might. You just never know. Again, you just have to be good to people. You really have to be good to people.
Yeah, man. It's funny that you had that situation because even with my mentor, Alvin Fielder, he told me that the lesson was $100, right? So I showed up, my mom got the money together with my $100. And then he was offended when I pulled it out of my pocket,
Yeah.
And so like all of those years, I got free drum lessons, but I had to know who Max Roach was when I walked in there. You know what I mean? Like I had to get the knowledge and use it. And sometimes that's enough, Sometimes that's
more
enough.
than enough.
Yeah.
Masters, like teachers need students. Like I feel like the older I get, the more I run into more mentors, the more I realize like everyone, if you think of it as a singular power, like a singular knowledge, everyone that touches it adds something to it. Like you have to keep it going. Like masters need teachers, teachers need students. Everything is all connected.
Yeah, but on the other note, yo, keep your business stuff together. You know what I mean? Like
at the same time,
Yeah.
like you know, like someone like Al or Mr. Baptiste, like they both had steady incomes outside of teaching lessons and outside of playing gigs.
Diversify.
So I read a quote the other day. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, like if you keep your overhead low, you can live a life where you're operating at a surplus, and that surplus will allow you to give. And when you're playing $50 gigs, going gig to gig, trying to make it all the time, you might not have the luxury of giving a free lesson because your time is so valuable to just making ends meet on a moment to moment basis.
It's very true.
So I think it is. I mean, I think it's totally cool for someone to charge $150 for a lesson. I don't know what Nicholas Payton charges, but I know he charges. His lessons are not cheap, but I know if I was to pay $200 to go take an hour lesson with Nick, I would not show up to that lesson and
knowing everything
prepared.
Yeah.
And I know if I was going to show up to that next lesson for $200, like, you better believe
ready.
I'd be like, hey, look, actually I couldn't practice this week. Can we postpone for 1 week, please?
Nah.
Absolutely.
So I think there is a value also to charging money for a lesson just to, we're not babysitting, man. That's $18.50 an hour, and I'm not trying to do that.
Yeah, you're not babysitting. You can't give it away to everybody.
Yeah.
No.
But sometimes you need to, if you have the space to give it away to a special person, then cool. Now, but Greg hit a good point. Like, since we are in this time of COVID and, nobody has gigs, like I'm curious about what you think about the ethics of someone right now going to school to get a degree in something that they can't actually get a job in. Like, whose responsibility is it to make that decision? Is it on the universities? Is it on programs like ours? Or is it on the student?
You mean, let's say you have a student, say, man, I want to go into jazz studies, vocal jazz, or whatever, like performance, like jazz saxophone. Like, now, knowing that, this might not be, honestly, nothing's guaranteed, especially with this kind of degree, like a liberal arts, degree, nothing's really guaranteed. I think obviously I would think it's a responsibility. It's an option. I mean, I like that it is an option. I think it's a responsibility kind of that person to really weigh the weight of that. Because if it is something that for you brings you spiritual awareness or feeds you spiritually, and it's something that you really, 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 really feel is like meant for you, then man, do it. Because, you'll find more happiness in at least chasing that idea and following it through than never knowing. I guess I'm also kind of biased because I'm a strong believer in, like, you got to kind of have more than one stream of income. You kind of have to, like, be able to adapt in a lot of multiple ways, more so now given the pandemic than ever. Like you said, there are no gigs. Nobody's playing downtown Frenchman Street. So what are people, like people that were making a living, gig to gig, gigging economy in New Orleans? What are some of those people doing that are the most vulnerable?
Yeah, I think about it like as a musician or artist or creative, you don't want to be Blockbuster in the time of Netflix.
Ooh, I like that. I love that, actually.
So
you need to make shirt.
Make a shirt. I'll put it. It'll be on my web. Like, go to my website, bro. DarrianDouglas.com. That's a shop. It's on there. Don't worry. Or it will be tomorrow. But yeah. So you don't really want to get caught up in that kind of war, because you remember Blockbuster. They was going for a long time, and everybody's like, nobody's in there. And I feel like a lot of musicians are doing that now, or even giving away their services, going to a coffee shop to play for coffee, or which is like, yo, we got to pivot.
That also kind of devalues already a highly oversaturated market. Not even talking about like music performance or jazz specifically, or I'm saying just from access to music. Like you have things streaming, Spotify, you have DJs, like to physically go, get a degree. Like, I mean, I have a master's degree in like jazz music studies, and it's like to go and do that, then it must be something that really, really like deals to who you define yourself or identify as a person. Not because you like, I need to get this paper so I can get a job, but I need to get this because it's a part of my next move. Like it's specifically a part of something that I know will make me a better person. And that's kind of why I did it. I mean,
right. Well, you did it at a different time. I'm talking about now today. There's some people going to college and like went to college last week or going in a few weeks. What about those people?
Man, I know. I remember my dad told me there's no shame in chasing your dreams. I feel for those people because, again, I think specifically, let's say you want to go to like Berkeley, you want to go to like new school, these colleges that, have a serious like high level of tuition, you end up with a lot of debt with almost no guarantee. Like there's no job. You can't apply for a job to be a professional saxophonist. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm saying if people are much better at building their own systems, then that's a different story. That's the kind of conversation I'll have with a student like that. It's like, okay, you want to go to school of jazz. Well, you need to understand that you need to build your own system. Like you need to build your own boss. You need to develop some kind of tool in which, it helps others or serves others in a monetizable way. Something, you got to have something, nothing is guaranteed, as we see.
Yeah, I like that. That's great.
I think that's an important thing to like always reinforce with aspiring musicians, and also, having seen you throughout the years, you've again, meeting you while you were doing your undergrad at UNO, and seeing you come out with pictures. You came out with a new record last year, and going through the process of branding yourself as an artist and like trying to add value to your music outside of just playing gigs. And I think it's like, man, for all the young musicians out there watching, like everyone can play, like I could throw some, nickel and hit 350 saxophone players who could play better than me. And, and you know what, like, and it's cool. They play better than me, but there's only 3 or 4 of them that people actually want to go see. And you got your you Chad Leftwich Brown and your Mark Turner and Chris Potter and things like that. But like those guys are not only amazing players, but they have like this entire brand built around whether they're outright marketing themselves as great saxophone players or they've marketed themselves through this like mystical jazz type thing.
Yeah. Man, most of those people too kind of establish themselves through other people. I mean, I know with Chad played with Chris Bodie. He toured for years. Taylor Swift, they see that there's opportunity for more. Like you have to be ambitious. Like I realized too when I was younger, I didn't shoot high enough. Like I'm happy for where I am, but I should have shot like a lot higher. Because now that I've gotten there, I'm like, man, everything I want is attainable. Like if it's something I need, like I know I can find the resources to make it happen. Like trying to instill that into students, like having them understand that what you want to happen is available out there. You just have to be willing to like find those people that are doing it, and also spend the time learning, like really doing the homework, really doing the research. Have a plan. Like another thing, and I'll be short, is like when people say better. Like when a student comes to me and they say, I want to sound better. I was like, what does that mean? Like when you say better, like define it. Like when we define success, we usually measure it up against other people that we assume or we think are doing better than us. So when I say better to a student, I'm like, what do you mean when you say better? And then I make them, we might play a course of something, anything. Play along, I might play piano, and I'll make them play 4 courses of blues. And I'll make them listen to that. I'm like, you say you don't like this, you don't like that, you don't like this, you do like this, you do like this, you do like that. What would you do better? How can you define it measurably as better? That way, we won't define ourselves by the musicians that we are, what we think we're supposed to sound like. That kind of comes back into individualism but also like measurable goals. That goes beyond music. That can go to finances now as far as pandemic. That can go to personal stuff, but measurable goals, super important.
Absolutely.
So we're coming up here on time, and man, that was actually that was a wonderful piece of advice. But I don't know, man, if there's anything else that you want to share with us before we call it a day. Maybe you could also share about how people can get in contact with you and find out more about you and the music that you're making.
Yeah. I guess you can find out everything you like to know about me at my website, amarimakesmusic.com. You can check out the EP, some YouTube stuff. In this age of time, I started learning bass back in January, so I spent a lot of my time taking online bass lessons from cats to kind of help my production out. Anything though, I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Amari Makes Music. You can definitely keep up with what I'm doing. As far as advice, especially now in this time, in this day and age, I think, especially for the creator, for the musician, it's important to find things that bring you peace, whether music or not. I know I like to meditate. It really helps me out just to kind of think, to sit and to collect myself. And with that peace, it also allows me to be comfortable and accept things as they are. I think us musicians, we're kind of like, man, when will things go back to when we had gigs, and we kind of go back to touring? The sooner we accept that what was then will not be what is next. Whatever was before this will not be how it is when we come after this. And the sooner we kind of understand that, and the sooner we accept that now is the time to start to kind of pivot, like you said, Darrian, kind of pivot just a little bit. Try to what are some other things you might be interested in, like musically? How maybe you use your assets as a musician to, create a system, find something that will bring you some peace amount, or specifically some income, because it's an unprecedented time right now. Still, like I said before, find something that brings you peace. Sit in it every day, even if it's just a couple minutes, to remind yourself. As a creative mind, we feel a lot. We see a lot. Like, be aware of that. Find that peace, and then use that peace to keep yourself going. To keep moving.
That was great, man. I love that. I've been taking notes the whole time. You said a lot of dope stuff.
Yeah, you got to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Can't
what
stay
was
here.
then will not be what's next. Y'all need to write that down at home.
Well, man, Amari, thank you so much for time to chat with us. Man, I just, I love you so much. It's been such a great privilege and pleasure, having you as a friend and as a musical inspiration and a running buddy.
Yeah, you be running, bro. Greg be running.
So, yeah, all of you watching, thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, I'm Gregory Agid, the artistic director, and we got Mr. Darrian Douglas here. He's our executive director, Second Line Arts Collective. If you guys have enjoyed what you've seen, please, there's a donate button on our Facebook page if you wouldn't mind contributing to our organization. Everything we do is funded by a couple grants and generous donations by people like you. So thank you so much for believing in us and the programming we're trying to give everyone.
Absolutely.
Douglas?
Yeah, so this has been the Working Artist Project. Mari, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we'll catch y'all next time.
Next time. Y'all take it easy.
Peace.